Hey guys, I'm Chad. I'm one of the lab techs here on the Polytech campus, and today we're going to go over our 3D printer here. Today we have a Prusa i3 MK3. It uses PLA, the 1.75 PLA that you see up here. It can use other materials, but that's what we usually provide here. The bed here is magnetic, so it can be taken off, and it happens to be 9.8 by 8.3 and then a Z height of 8 inches. So that'll be your print area or printable area that you can do. So put this back over on here. And again, like I said, we're using PLA here, the 1.75. Now when you first get to this 3D printer, sometimes they're on, sometimes they're not. If it's off, like this one is, there's a little power switch here on the side, so we'll just go ahead and turn it on. We'll see the screen come up, and we have two buttons here. We have a top one that's a knob, and on the bottom one it's a little button with an X. So the top button with the knob, you can press it and rotate it around. The bottom one with the X, that actually restarts your machine, so that's like kind of your emergency stop also. So but when you first get to the machine, the very first thing you're going to do before we even really start designing anything or getting onto the software is we're going to hit this little knob button here. And it's going to take us to a screen, and on our screen we're going to rotate the knob to where the arrow says preheat. We're going to click preheat or press down on the knob, and the first option again is PLA, because again that's what we're doing. So this machine is going to start warming up the nozzle and a little bit of the bed, and it takes a little bit of time. So while it's loading and heating up the nozzle here, we're going to go ahead and jump in the software and then set up our 3D model. Okay guys, so the program that we end up using for this is going to be Cura. We'll find it down here at the bottom, the blue and white C down here. When you open it up, this is the first image that we're going to get. We'll probably end up either on recommended or custom settings. So we'll go ahead and start off on recommended settings for now. But the very first thing that we're going to open up our file. Now this program uses .stl files or 3D object files. So if you're using stuff like AutoCAD, Fusion 360, SolidWorks, anything along those lines, you're going to save the file as a .stl. If you're downloading it again off the internet, you want a .stl. So I'm going to go ahead and open my file. I already know I'm going to use this pitchfork coin here. And we'll see it loaded right up immediately to the center. Down here in our lower left hand corner, that's going to be our lower left hand corner of the bed. This is an exact representation of the bed. And we have our XYZ. To rotate and view, all we're going to do is right click and hold, and we can rotate and look, and we can see there's the front of our coin. Right now, we're going to go over the object manipulators, which are all the toolbar over here on our left hand side. So first thing we're going to do is just click on our object, and we can see right now we can move it. If we grab any of these axis arrows, it'll move exactly on the axis. If we were to grab the Z and raise it up, we'll see that it automatically brings it back down. Now if you don't want to move it directly on any of those axes, you can just go ahead and grab it and free move. And again, it'll bring it right down flat on the Z axis. Our next object manipulator is going to be the scaling. Here we could see the millimeters in X, Y, and Z. We have uniform scaling selected right now, so if I was to change this to, let's say, to 20, everything went down to 20%. If I was to change it to 200, everything changed to 200%. So that's what uniform scaling does. If I was to unclick uniform scaling, I would be able to adjust these each individually without the others adjusting on their own. And if you choose to not do it via percentage and you want to do it through the length measurements here, you can definitely do that too. Your next object manipulator is going to be the rotate. So we'll have reset, and then we'll also have lay flat. So we'll rotate around and we'll see all these circles around. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to grab this red circle and we're going to rotate it till we see it say 90, and it's going to lay flat. That's what all of these circles do. We could grab the green one and we can see it go left, right, lay it flat. We'll grab this blue one, we can see we rotate it like that. We'll go ahead and leave it there. Another feature for that lay flat, let's say we came in coming standing straight up, but if we just hit a lay flat button right next to this reset button, it'll automatically put that object flat. We'll go ahead and rotate this thing just for fun so we can see it looking at ourselves. So that will be your object manipulator tools. Again, when we click on it, we're on rotate, so we want to move, we'll have to go back to move and everything like that. But now I like the position, we'll just go ahead and leave it for now. Under recommended settings, that's what we're going to go over next. We'll see we have the layer height and print speed. It's a slider bar here. Really you want to stay between 0.1 and 0.3. 0.1 is going to be your finer layer height. It'll give you a higher quality. It lowers that speed down for you automatically, but it's going to take a little bit more time. So we could even leave it at 0.15. Do it right kind of almost in the middle, speed things up a little bit. Now our infill, I'm just going to keep it at 20%. Infill, if we went all the way up to 100% here, that means our object is going to be solid. You can see it here represented by this little square over here. If we were to go down any little, we can go to 60 and we'll see it starting to crosshatch, almost kind of honeycomb, and we'll keep going down and it gets more and more, less and less here as we go up and down on it. So I'm just going to leave it at 20%. What that's going to do is it's going to use less material and take less time. But again, this part doesn't really require any salt, or doesn't need to be solid because it's not supporting anything. So 20% is fine. If there's a support arm or something, I'd definitely go 100%. The next thing you have here is enable gradual. We're just going to leave that unchecked. Next thing we have generate support. Now I'm going to go ahead and check mark it. Basically the program is going to generate its own support based where it sees need, or where it determines that it's needed. In this case, we'll see it here in a little bit when we end up changing our view up here. But for now, we'll just go ahead and leave it. Build plate adhesion, we're actually going to uncheck mark that. I don't need any. This machine does not use hairspray, does not use glue sticks, unlike some of our other machines. It uses no adhesion. If I was to click build plate adhesion, form adhesion is actually okay. It lays down plastic or lays down that PLA filament just around the object, trying to secure it more to the actual board or to the actual bed. But again, in this case we don't need it, but later when we change our views, I'll go over the different type of build platform adhesion. Now with recommended settings, I'd go ahead and probably just stick with this, but there's one thing I'd need to change with recommended in custom. So if I switch over to custom settings, the one thing recommended does not do properly is change the temperature. So I'd have to go into material here and see how it's listed at 200 degrees. We want to change that to 210. Build plate temperature, we want it at 90. Those are the settings that we find that work best with these machines, and you'll get a better print with those temperatures. Once I'm done there, I'd actually go ahead and probably print. Now let's say I don't want to go with these recommended settings. I want to change them and manually input everything myself. So the first thing, we'll go back to custom settings and we'll go ahead and hit quality. Quality is our layer height. So you can see we're at 0.15 from our recommended settings. In this instance, I'm just going to go choose a happy medium of 0.2. Again, you're going to want to stay between about 0.1 to 0.3 layer height. You did probably go up to 0.35, but again, you kind of don't want to go too thick of a layer, then you don't quite get as good a quality. And then when you go that smaller layer, it'll turn out pretty good, but again, it takes a lot more time, significantly amount. Our next thing that we're going to look at is our infill density. We already kind of went over, leaving it at 20%. The only thing that changes here is we have the option for what type of pattern. We could do a grid, line, triangle, whatever you prefer. Usually we just leave it at grid. It seems to work out pretty good. Next, again, material, just double checking, we already changed it. We're going to be at 210 degrees and 90 degrees. Next, we'll go over our speed. Our speed is set right now to 60 millimeters a second. That's going to be the fastest speed that you can print at. The slowest speed you can go is about 15 millimeters a second. Combine that with your print quality, and you can really refine what your part looks like. Again though, with a slower speed is going to take more time. In this instance, I'm okay with doing 60% speed. 0.2 is going to give me a pretty good quality, and I'm pretty satisfied with the quality it produces with a 0.2 millimeter layer height and a 60 millimeters a second print speed. Sometimes it's worth printing test pieces to see what kind of quality you're really looking for. These machines are good for prototyping and small projects, so it's always good to kind of experiment and see where your specific object works. Next, we're going to go to that support. And I click generate support, and we can see these extra options here. If I unclicked generate support, it'd go away and we'd have none. I'm just going to go ahead and click it again so we can go over this. So our extra options are support placement everywhere and touching build plate. We're always going to leave it at everywhere. Our support angle is important. If we set our support angle to 1, we are going to get the most support that we can in this object, our object. And then if we went up to 80, we'll get the least amount other than unclicking generate support or having no support. In this instance, we'll just leave it at 45. When we change the view up here, we'll go ahead and see that type of change with the support material. That'll be here shortly. Your Z distance, now this is very important. This is your distance between your support material and your actual object, and this helps you detach your support material. What you want to do is match your support distance to your layer height. So we're at a 0.2 layer height, and we're going to go 0.2. Have those two match up, and your support will be able to attach with ease. Now down to build plate adhesion. Now we have our options of skirt, brim, raft, and none. Skirt, brim, and raft, it's just different sizing of additional adhesion using the PLA material. Right now I'm just going to hit none, but we'll see what everything looks like here in a sec. Now I have all my settings set the way I want them. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to hit prepare. Now once prepare goes through and it starts to slice, what that's going to do is it's going to give us the time it's going to take and the amount of material as well as the grams. The length of material right here, that's down here, that 0.6, that's what you're going to use to pay with, is 5 grams. That's usually what you're going to do when you weigh your material to see if you have enough. And right now it's saying we're at 26 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead now and go back up and change our view so we can see our support and possibly our build plate adhesion. So I'm going to come up here from solid view. We have the option to have an X-ray view, but we're going to want our layer view. When we click on layer view, automatically it's going to go to color scheme and we're going to say line type. You have your other options of material color, featherette, and layer thickness, but in order to see everything properly, we're going to go ahead and keep it at line type. We have extruder 1 check marked because we only have one extruder. Show travels, that's just going to show you the travel path of the nozzle as it goes, and right now I don't want to see that. Show helpers, this is actually your support material. And you can see right now there is really no support material on this piece, and that means the program determined it didn't need any. I'm actually going to modify this object here in a second so we can actually see some support material populate. Next we have the infill, or we have the infill in the shell. Again, these are going to just be for the outside. We can see the infill out here, the shell out here being red. But really the main one that we like to look at here are these helpers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this object again. I'm going to go ahead and rotate it. Now when I rotate it, you can see anytime I manipulate this object, our slicer down here, so every time we'll have to hit prepare again to see what our new settings or what our new estimates are going to be like. And that's also again to see what our support material is going to look like. Now currently I have support material set to 45, and now we can really see that clearly with this light blue coming in here. We have helpers. If I was to undo that and put it back, again that's our support material, and we're at that happy medium of 45. To go to the extreme, if I said 1, let's go ahead and hit prepare and see what we get with that. This should give us the most amount of support material once it goes ahead and loads up here. Click and prepare again, see if it goes. And it can take a little bit for it to slice. With larger objects in here or anything like that, it does take more time for it to go over. Let's see, for some reason, oh, there we go. Now let's go ahead and slice. Like I said, this computer is a little slow, so it just took it a second here. So now we got our support material again. We can see we have a lot more here on the sides. Let's go back to that extreme to 80. We'll go ahead and hit prepare, and we'll see what we get with this. Again, alright, this computer's processor is just a little bit slow. The graphics card's not all that great, so it takes a minute to slice and to go through here, and we'll see what it's gonna look like in a moment. And look, we're down to 25 inches, 0.66 grams, and look, we barely have any support material. But in this case, I don't want any support material, anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and lay it flat. Laying it flat is going to be the best way or the best method for this thing to print. Standing vertically up like that, there's a higher chance for it to fail as it is to laying flat like this. Really, the less amount of support material you have to use, the better. So I went ahead, prepared it, and we can see we're at 26 minutes, 0.6 meters, and 5 grams. Now that I'm done with that, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to save this to an SD card. Now you'll find the SD cards in the Prusa machines on like the left hand side. You'll pull it out. A lot of the computers should already have an SD adapter in them, and you'll go ahead and insert that SD card into the adapter. Currently I already have the SD card plugged into my computer, so I'm going to look at this option, or come down here, and we have the option already to save to removable drive. It says the E drive. If I arrow down, we have print via USB and save to file. I want to verify that this is the E drive, that's the right SD card, so I'm going to say save to file. Click on that. I'm going to come down here, and yes, this is the USB I want, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and it's saving the G code. The other thing I could do, again, I knew that was E now. If you know that it's the right drive, the E drive, and that's not, say, your USB, you can go ahead and say save to removable, and it went ahead and saved it again to that E drive. And I'm just going to go ahead and eject that SD card. Now what we can go ahead and do is put the SD card into the Prusa machine, and we can go ahead and printing now that we have everything set up. Hey guys, so now that we're done on the software, I just wanted to show you where you can usually find those SD cards. So a lot of time on the machines, they're going to be here on the side, and you can go ahead and pull it out. And then on many of the computers, we'll find an SD adapter. So we'll go ahead and put the SD card into that adapter. We'll plug it into the computer, and like I showed you on the software, we'll say save to disk, and that will be that SD card. So once we're done with that software, we're going to take this SD card, we're going to reinsert it back into our Prusa over here on the side. So now that we're ready to go and we got our SD card back in the machine, we're going to go ahead and swap out our filament. That's why we had to preheat it. So right now this Prusa is saying it's at 215 degrees, which is perfect. So we're going to go ahead and hit this button up here, that knob. We're going to push down. We're going to have the screen pop up with preheat, print from SD card, load filament, and we're going to rotate one more down, and we're going to say unload filament. We're going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to auto eject, and we'll hear it beep, and we can go ahead and pull it out. I'm going to put this filament away. And now we're going to use our pink filament. So I know I definitely have enough filament and material to print out that little coin that I'm going to use, but sometimes we're going to have less on that reel. So if you're wondering how much material you have left, or if you have enough, what you're going to end up doing is around our lab we have a whole bunch of empty reels floating around that are the same size as these guys, and they'll have the grams weight on them. In this case, we'll go ahead and just weigh this empty one. It's going to be the one for the pink. And we'll have this scale right around over those 3D printers. Turn it on. I'm going to go ahead and weigh this. And it's weighing at 220 grams. Go ahead and remove this. And if I was to weigh this pink material here, we're at 950. So basically what we do is we take 950 minus 220, and that'd give us 330 or 730, my bad. So grams of material. So we definitely have plenty of material, and that's how much you'd check. Again, when we hit that prepare, it gave us the meters. That's how you'd pay for it, and then we have that grams, and that's how much you'd know how much you had left. So again, we're going to use this pink material. So the first thing that we're going to do, undo it here. We're actually going to snip off the tip. We'll have these pliers or these little cutters laying around, usually next to the material, and all we're going to do is just cut off that tip to make a nice clean point there. We'll go ahead and put this thing back up. Then all we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just insert it here from the top where you pulled it out. You're going to keep pushing until you can't anymore. Once we got that pink filament pushed in, we're going to go ahead and hit this button again. And next thing that we're going to say is we're going to rotate and we're going to say load filament. When we hit it, we can feel it and we can kind of hear it that the machine starts grabbing the filament and it's going to keep pushing it down. It's going to take, probably about 30 seconds for it. And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to see some material down here at the bottom being pushed out. We want to wait. So our previous material was black. So we're wanting to see the pink material come through. We know that once it'll come all the way through. And on the screen here, it's going to say, do you see the new pink filament? And you're usually going to say yes once it's done. But again, it's still doing its auto load. And actually it didn't come all the way through. So it says filament extruding and with color correction. We're actually going to say no. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep pushing it out until we see it come all the way through. So sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So it's important to kind of pay attention. And now it's kind of probably hard to see, but we're getting some of this old black filament being pushed out right now. It's slowly starting to change. Oh, it looks like it's changing into that pink. So we'll let it finish pushing it all out, and then once it asks us that question again, we're going to say yes this time. So again, it asks us this question, filament extruding and with correct color, we're going to go ahead and say yes. So we can go ahead and grab this old filament that it pushed out, and we'll go ahead and throw it away. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to actually wipe down the surface of our bed with just alcohol. So no hairspray. Unlike our previous 3D printers that we have, this requires no adhesion or outside adhesion. So absolutely no hairspray. Don't use any glue sticks, anything. The only thing that you want to put on the surface of this is going to be the spray bottles here with alcohol. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to squirt a little bit up on top. And I'm going to take some paper towels here. And then I'm just going to wipe it down. And that just ensures that we have a nice clean surface. If I see any other PLA fragments on there, I'd go ahead and remove them, but in this case we're good. So now that we're all set up, got the filament coming out in the proper color, bed's preheated, we're going to go ahead again, we're going to hit that button, and we're going to go down to the third option where it says print from SD card. We'll click on the button. So I ended up choosing, my file name is going to be pitchfork coin. So I'm going to rotate through this menu till I see pitchfork coin, and I'm going to select that. Here we go. So I got pitchfork coin, so I'm just going to go ahead and push down and select it. And then we're going to see the bed's heating. And we'll see the heating for the nozzle start to go too. So now basically your printer's good to go. But what you want to do is you want to wait until you actually see it start to print. You're going to make sure that the material's coming out properly, it's doing the outline, and so you're going to want to sit here and wait at least till you see anything like that. Once you wait about 5-10 minutes into that print at most, you can go ahead and walk away and come back and return when it's appropriate. So we'll just sit here and wait for a sec till we start seeing it go. And once it's done, we can go ahead and clean up and come back later. Alright, the bed's all heated up and the nozzle's at the correct temperature, so we're about to see this machine here do its auto leveling. So that's another key thing that we need to watch out for other than seeing it print out properly. So it's going to do its 9 points for its auto level. And now it's going to come to the left-hand corner and it's going to print out or lay down a small strip of plastic. Basically, it's cleaning off its nozzle at that point. And now it's going to go ahead and start printing. And we can see it's starting to do the outline. Alright, now our print is finally done. Once it's completely done, we can actually lift up the bed here. We can take it off. We'll have our part right here. Usually, if you're trying to take it off, we're going to scrape it with a plastic scraper, not a metal one. Metal ones can damage the top of this sheet, so we're going to use a plastic scraper. Also, the sheet's a little flexible too, so you can kind of bend it a little bit and get it to pop. But again, this one came off pretty easily, but the key here is to use a plastic scraper, and then you'll be good to go. If you guys experience any technical difficulties at all during this entire process, find one of the lab techs walking around. Go ahead and stop. Try not to work on the machine on your own, and we'll come over and try and help you and fix it. Whether it be problems with the actual machine itself or you have questions about the software. Thanks.